Los Angeles is simultaneously the glamour capital of the world and the unloved ugly little stepbrother of New York and San Francisco. And this isn't just because we're home to the smug, absurd movie industry and in restaurants where every other waiter is hotter than Ryan Gosling, and all of us have friends in the industry and bumped into Debbie Allen that one time. It's also because we've taken a gorgeous collection of sublime Art Deco architecture and filled it with rundown KFCs. It's a city where you have to stop and look up to see what you've really got. You have to peer through the soot and smog and squint to see the beauty beneath. That's what Killer of Sheep is about, Charles Burnett's startlingly superb 1977 film school project, which had a slow start getting released because of copyright issues, but which was given a proper release 30 years later thanks to Steven Soderbergh and other film fans in the 2000s. It's a movie about beauty and despair, hopelessness in childhood, and wistful hope as an adult. It's grimy, it's sad, but it recognizes that if we just stop and see what we have, love and beauty are everywhere. The story, well, there barely is one. A slaughterhouse worker in Watts named Stan has of late, and he knows not why, lost all his mirth. His gorgeous wife desperately wants him, but can't comprehend why Stan won't smile.
Let's go to bed.
Stan's life seems to be a series of tiny frustrations lit up by tiny moments of joy. His wife takes slow efforts to make herself beautiful as their daughter sings love songs to her doll.
Do you want the stars to play with?
Stan holds a teacup, a family heirloom probably, far more elegant than everything else in their home, up to his cheek. His friend says the cup is just full of hot air and water, but Stan says the warmth of the cup is like foreplay. About the only other time that Stan smiles in this film is when his daughter comes in for a cuddle. The whole film is slices of life. It reminds me of The Human Comedy by William Saroyan about an Armenian community in Ithaca, California in the 1930s, a landscape of misery punctuated by moments of humane love and beauty. And like that novel, it's the details that give this movie its texture and its glory. In one scene, Stan and a buddy sit up late at night playing bones. There was a period of my life when everyone I knew played dominoes. I carried a set with me in my car just in case. White friends, black friends, middle class and lower class friends. Bones were just a part of Los Angeles life.
Then we played bones, and I'm yelling domino.
These details add up in near-documentary fashion to paint life in Watts in the early 70s, having cereal for dinner topped with tons of sugar, driving off with a forgotten Schlitz on your hood, that teacup. I've never been a poor black man in Los Angeles, but I have been a poor man in Los Angeles, and boy, does Burnett nail that experience.
Do you want the stars to play with?
One thing Killer of Sheep never is, despite its chronically depressed protagonist, is a pity party. It's largely a film about self-esteem. As Stan protests to a friend,
"Man, I ain't poor. Look, I give away things to the Salvation Army. You can't give away nothing to the Salvation Army if you poor." Say, a long-headed boy, how many times I tell you don't call your mother my dear? You're in the country or something.
everyone is fighting for respect, especially self-respect.
How come you're not going to school? You're going to fall behind.
Stan has an extended adventure when he goes to buy a new car motor off an acquaintance. The man's nephew has gotten into a scrape and is lying on the floor bleeding under a blanket, probably suffering from a concussion. Stan, for once, is not passive.
Sim, she kicked your nephew over here, man.
He snarls at the man's uncle that he should show some compassion, and the uncle replies,
"Can't you see I don't give a He shouldn't have run his mouth so much."
In another scene, some buddies come by and try to lure the passive Stan into a robbery, but Stan's wife comes out and she shuts them down.
You wait just 1 minute. You talking about be a man, stand up. Don't you know it's more to it than just with your fists? The scars on your mug, you talking about an animal or what? Now, you think you're still in the bush somewhere? You here. You use your brain. That's what you use.
They are not that kind of family.
Bye-bye. Do you want the star?
This leads us to the other non-storyline in the film, a series of vignettes of children playing, often cruelly in large packs around the neighborhood. Not many specifics are given about these kids. They build a fort in a junkyard. They pelt a passing train with rocks. They pelt each other with rocks on tenement balconies. They ride bikes. At one point, a boy calls the girls who block his way skags, and the little women rise up and beat his ass. The fierce defense of self-respect is always there, but so is the despair. The kids repeatedly make the weaker or more sensitive members of their band cry. Burnett does not build these breakdowns into any sort of story arc. Nobody apologizes. Nobody goes to get their dad's gun. Burnett simply shows the children are cruel to each other. He doesn't outline if this childhood cruelty is caused by the heartlessness of the adults, or if it's building the kids into the sort of adult who would knock over a liquor store or ignore their nephew's injuries. It's all just part of the ecosystem.
Or the moon to run away with.
But also part of that ecosystem is a cheery drive in the countryside, slow dancing with your wife, an unquenchable, albeit consistently frustrated, desire to make life better.
Trying to get ahead, man.
It's only $15 to get a new motor for your car, and the only thing that stops you from rejuvenating that old car is your friend being lazy and not putting the motor properly into the bed of his pickup truck. This seemingly aimless film is unbelievably beautiful. The soundtrack ranges from R&B and classical music to patriotic ballads like What is America to Me by Paul Robeson.
What is America to me?
Burnett's pursuit of exactly the right songs to illustrate his story delayed the film's proper release for decades, but that paid off. He has the right songs and the right visuals.
Gonna pack my things and go.
Watching Killer of Sheep, your average film buff will immediately think of gritty Italian neo-realism like The Bicycle Thief or Battle of Algiers, but Burnett's inspirations were actually quite different. He cited Song of Ceylon by Basil Wright as a major influence, a nearly wordless ethnographic study about Sri Lanka from 1934. Like Killer of Sheep, it's non-judgmental and a quiet reflection of people's daily work and the play of their children. At one point, the traditional manual labor of the locals is contrasted with radio communications from a British company, implying both the modernization coming to Sri Lankan industry and the essential sameness of the Western and, quote, exotic workdays. In light of Basil Wright's documentary, Killer of Sheep itself is revealed as an ethnographic study, the documentarian turning his camera back onto his own community, telling his own story. Unlike the heavy political messaging of Italian neorealism, we're seeing someone peering carefully at his own world, hoping to defy the Hawthorne effect, where observing a thing will warp its behavior. Burnett's other major influence was The Southerner by Jean Renoir, a film made by the French auteur during his years living in the States in the 1940s. I might do another video on this tender, tricky film. For now, I'll stick to the direct connection. Renoir may have been out of his element in trying to capture life in the American South, but the film is highly sympathetic, and like Killer of Sheep, it's all about the details. Accurate or not, The Southerner gives a quiet account of a hard-working, taciturn leading man with a beautiful, loving wife who makes a series of poor decisions and runs into frustrating small obstacles that prevent him from moving forward in a tough environment.
After all.
Killer of Sheep takes a couple of guys trying to unwind over a game of bones in the middle of the night, talking through their stress.
Why'd you stop? I'm always awake.
Yeah, counting sheep.
Cut to the reason for Stan's stress. He spends every day, all day, killing innumerable sheep. Counting them would only make his situation worse. Killer of Sheep is implacable, unplaceable. It refuses to pry open the mind of its hero. It doesn't explain why the neighborhood children are cruel. It isn't some sort of metaphor like Lord of the Flies or a political warning like Battle of Algiers. It isn't just a series of beautiful images like Man with a Movie Camera or Baraka. Like Stan, it looks at the world and it wonders. It wonders of the ugliness and beauty, and it leaves the choosing to us as viewers.